Welcome back to N2 the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I wasn't on the invite list.
Oh, come on! Come on! It was a spur of the moment thing. I had to do it. It was an itch. I had to scratch it. You know what's funny though? Like literally, where this kind of comes from, and this part I feel comfortable saying like out loud and into the world is I had a conversation with Jean Paul, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him like, what do you think is impossible for us to do? Right? Like in our creative efforts, is there anything that you don't think is possible? And he kind of thought about it and he's like, I don't know. Like, why are you asking? And the reason why I was asking was I had just come back from Fan Boston, and I was looking at the people that I had interviewed and things like that I've made connections with. So like Mark Silvestri, right? You know, one of the 7 founders of Image Comics, where when I was getting into comics, like this is the height of their presence and whatnot. And these are the guys that are kind of my inspiration for even being in the medium. And now this guy knows who I am. Like on a name basis, like he sees me and he's like, hey, Victor, how are you? Like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so in recognizing that and like working with Larry Houston, you know, the director of X-Men the Animated Series, I'm like, I've gotten to a point where like what I would have thought impossible as a kid is actually far more plausible than I think. Like it's not, no, you can't do that. You know, it's just like, well, no, how do I do that? Like, let me figure it out. And it took me back to, you know, all the years that you were telling me like, let's go to San Diego. And I'm like, I don't know how to get to San Diego. Like I'm thinking like San Diego is something you have to be invited to, you have to be in the industry for a while, whatever. And you're like, no, we can just go. And it's like the evolution of that concept that I'm like, well, I want to see the set of Superman. I know it's in Cleveland. That's just 2 hours up the road. Can I do that? Can I get in the car and go? And then not only that, not only can I just be there, can I use this to market, promote my comics and me as a comic creator? And so I'm like, okay, what all do I need to do that? I need to have comics. Well, it's too expensive for me to just give away like floppies. That's not going to work. But I've already solved that problem when I created the Cardables, which is a trading card size piece that has a QR code on the back that you scan with your phone, and now you can, you know, read it for free and then pass those along to other people. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to make some more, and I'll just pass those out to crew, cast, whoever I can get to, and that's what I'm going to do. And so I get in the car and I go. And first and foremost, when I got here, like literally, I was proud of myself because I drove to Cleveland without looking at a map under any circumstance to specifically get downtown, because it's where, you know, again, big shout out to Fan Expo, it's where I've been doing their cons for the last few years. So I knew the route to get downtown because I knew roughly where they were shooting. I knew it was on Superior. So, okay, let me get down there and let me figure out what I can do. And I knew that they had shot the Daily Planet building, which is the leader building up there. And so I'm like, okay, it's got to be somewhere around there. But when I get there, there's no crew setup whatsoever. They've already done that shooting, so they're not doing it anymore. I don't know exactly where they are. I happened to go to the library that's like right there on the corner, and I asked the guard, like, are they still shooting up here? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you know where? And he's like, down the street. And I'm like, oh, sweet. So I go get those things printed, walk on down the street, and see how far I can get. And that's where I'll stop this story for right now. But like it was
You're the guy that goes to the concert and he's on the floor. He's like, I'm gonna get the front row.
kind of, yeah. Like, can I do that? You know, because I think that's one of those pieces where I actively have to recognize what my work life, creative life actually looks like, you know, because being in it, you don't quite see it that way.
Yeah.
Because you're too busy in it.
Right. No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, where actually can I go with this? And, you know, again, feeding into it, like I got assigned Sean Gunn to interview for Denver this past weekend. And so I'm like, okay, I know Sean is in the movie. It's been announced that he's Maxwell Lord. Maybe he's there. Like maybe I can see him or something like that. And that's now something that we can talk about. I did not see him on set. I didn't go. I didn't get that far.
Did you ask him though?
Did I ask him if he was there?
Yeah,
I did. And what was funny was of the things that I asked him, and I can't remember what all they were all things that he could answer yes or no. And he like praised me for. He's like, you did such a good job for asking what could be considered spoiler questions that I can actually answer. And he's like, that was perfect. He's like, I could not have asked you to do that better. That was wonderful. So it did kind of work, again, in the overall scale of what I wanted it to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the impetus of it all was like, can I actually just do this? You know, what is to stop me from doing this? And yeah, it was kind of freaking fun. Obviously, they are about to wrap up shooting in Cleveland and are going to go down to Cincinnati. Do you think that there's any chance that they are not going to Union Station to shoot Hall of Justice stuff?
I've been told that's exactly what they're going to do.
They have to be doing that. Like, if they didn't, it's an absolute waste. Absolute waste. But if we can, I want us to go down for that one because now I know that I can definitely just go down there.
It's closer.
It is. Oh, geez, you're right. It is closer, isn't it? I would pick the harder one. I definitely picked the harder one. But yeah, so I went to the set and I did not get on the set. Let me say that very plainly, very clearly.
Well, yeah, you're a free man.
Exactly.
Had you gotten on the set, I don't know that you would necessarily made it out to Denver.
Absolutely. But what was funny was the key piece of what I was looking for. The way this is set up, and this is, again, I've never been to a live movie set before. Like, never. So I had no idea what to expect to see. It's set up like a construction site.
Yeah.
You could literally walk by it and not know that that's what they're doing.
Yep.
That's brilliant to me. Have you ever been to a...
No, but I have an idea of what it is that's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like they just had like trucks kind of blocking off the street.
Yep.
They had some barricades up, and if it wasn't for, again, the keen pay attention to the persons that have walkie-talkies, I would have walked right by everybody. Wouldn't have noticed anybody doing anything. Mm-hmm. And I found the first person with a walkie-talkie who was very, very sweet. And I was like, hey, listen, this is what I'm here to do. You know, I am a comic book creator, and I would love to share some of my comics with the cast and crew if that's cool. And she's like, oh, that's awesome. Like, she was a CIA student up there, getting into filmmaking, things like that. And so we chatted for like a little bit, and I can't wait to see her name in the
You want to explain
credits.
what you just said? CIA?
Oh, I'm sorry. Cleveland Institute of Art. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Parlance,
Like
jargon.
CIA, huh?
No. Cleveland Institute of Art. Cleveland Institute of Art.
They're not supposed to work domestically.
They're not supposed to tell us like that. Sorry. No. Cleveland Institute of Art student, and we started talking to art school stuff like that. I told her that I went to CCAD, but I'm a happy dropout. And so she's a comic book fan as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, I've got some comics, and so I give her the cardables, and she's like, this is awesome. Like, yes, I'm going to pass these out. I got to talk to some of the transpo guys that were there. And again, I think this is one of those things where, like I said, me being a moderator at conventions gave me kind of like a better grounding for how to have these kind of communication, situations. Because like talking to the transpo team, like actually talking to them and like treating them like people, where otherwise, most people are like, oh, you're just transpo, I don't care about you. I'm like, no, like, what's it been like to, work this piece here? Like, are you seeing some cool vehicles? Are you, are you enjoying like working with the guests, things like that? And they're like, oh, it's cool. It's da-da-da. Like, no one actually asked them these questions. And I'm like, no, tell me anything. Tell me everything, whatever. I got to tell them that I was, scheduled to work with Sean in the upcoming week. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm here, is kind of see what I can see that I can bring up in our conversation, because I've worked with him, a couple of times. And it's cool to talk to him about Gilmore Girls and Guardians of the Galaxy. But if I can talk about something new, it gives us both something cool to do that is not the norm.
So now I'm thinking that, the pictures that they've shown.
Yeah.
Was he the one in the green?
Was Sean?
Yeah.
I don't know, because he did not. Okay, when I asked him if he had been there, his answer was yes, but he did not specify anything further because I knew not to ask anything further.
Yeah.
That is very possible.
Though it wasn't a mocaption suit.
Okay.
So it was probably one of those things that is going to, there's something there.
Right.
But you don't know what it is. It's probably not like a person.
Right. But there's a thing there.
There's a thing there.
Got you. That's a good point. That is a good point. I will say this. I did get to see James. I saw him. I wasn't nowhere near close enough to I could talk to him, but I saw him walk by. And I was like, wait, I know that white hair. That's James Gunn right there. Oh, man.
You should have shouted, I love you since you went natural.
He gives me the bird. From my vantage point, though, because I ended up I crossed the street and was ended up talking to another PA. And from my vantage point, you can kind of see some of the extras. And so there's a scene that it looks like we're seeing some of the leaked footage from where people are pointing up in the sky. And so if that's in the movie, I actually got to see that being shot, but I have no idea what they're looking at because everything else was blocked off so perfectly. I have no idea what's there.
See Wendell Pierce?
I don't know. Like I could.
Do you not know who Wendell Pierce is?
No. We see each other at the cookouts. Like we. But no, like I could only see extras.
I understand.
Yeah. But no, it makes me wonder. Like, so based on the pictures that have just come out, was Nathan Fillion there? Was the actress that plays Hawker? Like, were they there that day that I was there? Because
I was gonna say that they were there.
Right.
They had to have been there,
but I don't know if they were there that day. Yeah.
They were probably there that day. They may not have been shooting at that time.
That's possible. That is very possible. But they could have.
Yeah.
Because
they shoot a scene so many times.
Right.
And this is why it takes so long for a movie to get made.
Very true.
Is that they'll do like multiple takes. They'll do different camera angles.
Right. Inflections. Like everything.
Yeah. Yep.
That was actually one of the things that Sean talked about this weekend when they were doing the first Guardians of the Galaxy and the scene where Yondu was talking to the broker, and he was like, there are so many different versions of what Kraglin is doing in the background. Like, obviously we see the one where he's like laughing at the baby talk, but then there's some where he's like supposed to be super menacing, super dark, like maniacal. Like, there's all kinds of things that we didn't even see, and it's like, that's interesting that in terms of actual portrayals, they don't necessarily know exactly what they want all the time. Sometimes it's, you let the artistry happen and you're like, well, let's just see how this is going to work out. So I think that's dope.
Did you ask him what it was like to be in one of his brother's major films without having to put on a ton of makeup or,
No.
dots on his face or something? I
didn't this time. But he did say that what was interesting, and it almost seemed like him being Kraglin was secondary. Like, yes, he was going to be Kraglin in the movie, but the thing that made him the most valuable and something that he elected to do was be the placeholder of Rocket.
Yeah, he was Rocket. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, it wasn't like he was initially hired to do it. He just started doing it, and then they kind of hired him to do it because it helped. Because he was like, well, I'm just trying to get down to like where the eye level is so that everyone had something to look at, as opposed to just like the ball or just pretend. And that's how he ended up becoming Rocket. It wasn't a plan.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What do you think of the costumes that we've seen so far?
Meh. Well, it doesn't make much sense to me that the color scheme seems to be...
Oh,
it's like it's a uniform.
Yes,
and everyone is wearing, and I'm wondering if it's going to change any, or if that's just like if you're in the Justice League, you have to wear this.
So, what's interesting to me is it's not Justice League that it's reminiscent to me of. It's the Terrifics, and I know we're gonna go for a poll right here. The Terrifics was, I think, 2016. Coming off of New 52 type stuff.
Okay.
You had Mr. Terrific on the team, obviously. I think Plastic Man was on it. I think Metamorpho was on it. But it was kind of like a Fantastic Four-esque presentation of these heroes with a very similar costume, because I think what we've seen of their costumes looks so much like Mr. Terrific's that I think that's kind of what that's going to be. I don't know if they're going to officially be the Justice League yet, but if they're not, then the Terrifics makes sense to me.
Yeah, I hate the name Mr. Terrific. I always have.
I mean, because it's so very, like, what?
It's like,
would you have preferred for him to be called Fair Play?
No.
No?
I don't like that name either.
Okay. Well, if you had to pick between the two, Mr. Terrific or Fair Play, what would it be?
Fairific.
Good job.
That's better than either one of those.
Fairific is pretty good,
It's still not...
I'm Mr. Fairific.
Still not great, but it's better than either one of those.
Not Terplay.
I just think it's funny that everyone's going. They're just they continue to lose their mind about James Gunn being in charge.
Yes.
And I just think it's funny because I don't think it's just the people that are Zack Snyder people. Right. I think it's people that probably don't like Guardians. and I get that, and but it also could be, the hype that he put behind the Flash.
I mean,
but
he's got a job to do.
He does have a job to do, but also, come on.
I mean,
his job at that point could have just been like, I hope you enjoy the movie.
Fair.
Because it's not his product.
That's right.
Now, it was Peter Safran produced.
Right.
But I could see where people get put off by that. But what I don't understand is not giving it a chance. Like, that would be just like looking at Fillion as Gardner, and I'm like, his hair wasn't red enough.
I agree with that. It was not red enough.
But we haven't seen the final product.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that bothers me. Is just like, well, based on all this, I can't get behind it. I'm like, well, you were already against it, so who cares? Yeah,
that's not a change in place.
What's your point? Like, yeah, there are certain things that I don't like.
Right.
But I can wait.
And I think that's the most important part is maybe you don't like the ingredient, but that doesn't mean you're not going to like the final meal. Like,
right.
I'm that way. I'm a picky eater. There's certain things that if I see you cook with, I'm probably going to feel a certain kind of way about the food. But if I don't try it, it's going to be on me as the jerk for not actually trying the food. I think we were just talking about this before we started shooting, like Quicksilver. Evan Peters' Quicksilver in Days of Future Past is, I think, a prime example of this happening, where we saw him in the costume and people were like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Big silver jacket, goggles, he's wearing a band t-shirt, headphones. Oh, this is stupid. And then we see the movie. And one of the greatest scenes of the X-Men series, period. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. Cosplayers galore. People still wear that cosplay. Funny enough, we hated it. Universal we.
I don't even look at it as costume though, because I don't even remember it. I remember the only thing I remember now is the goggles, and it made so much sense because it's running so fast.
Yes.
Because like if you're like on a bicycle and it's going fast, you're like tearing up, and it's like
tearing up, let alone things flying in your face.
Yes.
Like that's any of that stuff. Like, yes.
Yeah, I absolutely love that scene.
It's great.
I'm not going to say like made the movie, but it was definitely one of the bright spots of that movie, and I really like that movie too.
No, agreed, absolutely agreed. And
I think the idea of costumes, we get entirely too much into it. Just like the Wolverine costume, which I'm like, I'm interested to see what the helmet looks like and everything, but it's going to be absolutely ridiculously looking because
it's gonna
because in the comic books it's just a 2D thing. You're like. And his hair happens to be that way too, which is also ridiculous. But I'm interested in seeing what it looks like. Yeah. But also, I'm not gonna get all up in arms about it.
I agree.
I go back to this a lot, like the first Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. The worst scene in that movie to me is when the Green Goblin and Spider-Man are sitting there talking to each other, and there's no inflection.
Right.
And I'm like, this is awful.
Right.
And then I see something like V for Vendetta.
Right.
And V, without seeing his face.
A mask the whole time.
Hugo Weaving was absolutely incredible in that role.
Yes.
His voice. But it was just, I just remember the back and forth between those two. And I'm like, I hate this.
Even if the acting of the physical body needed to be more because you're not seeing anything of it. Not a mouth move, not an eye.
Right.
Like they should be physically very much so super active in that regard because otherwise you're right. It is a dead scene that is basically voiceover the entire time. Like they might not even been like Toby or Willem that are doing that day. They just had some other people in there and they just came in later and just did voiceover.
Yeah, I have a friend that he watches a lot of motorcycle YouTube videos and these people have like the GoPros on and they have their helmets on and like they're talking, but it's like
that's not them in the moment.
It's just like they're doing this, and then there's voices happening, but you don't see there's. I'm like, this is driving me nuts. I can't do that.
It's not your thing.
No,
it's not your thing. I get it.
But I just think that people getting all upset about here's a picture,
right? Pitchforks. It's not what I want. I'm mad.
That's not my Superman. Like, okay.
And what's funny
guess what? You don't own Superman.
Ooh, that's true. But like the truth of the matter is they did it with Cavill as well. Cavill didn't have the shorts. All of a sudden it was a problem. You know, oh, he's not really Superman. He's not wearing shorts. But now how many people are asking for Cavill to come back?
Well, how many are, though?
That is fair. In truth, in terms of number, that is fair.
I mean, and I'm not going to say that Cavill was rejected because while Man of Steel didn't make a ton of money, it still made close to like $700 million.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem was that instead of going to a second Superman movie or a first Superman movie, if you're talking to me,
Right.
They went with Batman and Superman with a smattering of Wonder Woman.
Right.
And like you lost me on that. Like I still like Cavill in the role and everything.
But you didn't give us a chance to get Superman yet.
Right. And we didn't get Superman, in my opinion,
Right.
until Justice League,
Yeah.
the end of Justice League. More so the Zack Snyder version,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, still.
Right. But how many movies in are we to that? Like quite a few.
Yeah.
In order for us to not have them yet.
And to be honest with you, I was on board with Ben Affleck as Batman.
Same.
I'd never had a problem with him until they dumbed him down and
It was the lasso scene, wasn't it?
It was did not like you. And I'm like, what is that?
That is so un-Batman.
I
What
was
are we
like,
talking about?
come on, this is not you know, Adam West all over again.
That's true.
As much as I can't stand, you know, the way people write Dark Knight or Batman because he ends up being the Dark Knight at some point in time, at least that character was old enough where he should have been more like that.
I agree with that. And had been through some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like the loss of the undisclosed loss of a Robin. I love the fact that it was like, no, this dude he's in a place.
Yeah.
He's absolutely in a place. And not only did he lose a Robin already, you know, when we're introduced to him, it's like the absolute destruction of Gotham is happening due to Superman's fight with Zod. So now he's like, I really feel a certain kind of way and I'm going to push about this. Yeah. It made sense.
Like, I didn't have a problem with the concept of the movie and all
Yeah.
that. I just didn't like the timing of the movie.
I get that.
But back, you know, so the idea is that Cavill was basically rejected as Superman.
Right.
But, you know, the entire universe was.
Exactly.
It wasn't a very good universe, in my opinion.
Can I ask you a crazy question?
Sure.
There has been a photo leak that suggests that Ultraman is in this movie. It's a black suit with a U on it where Cornsweat's Superman is being escorted.
Mm-hmm.
If it is revealed that is Henry Cavill, what does that do for this movie?
I don't think it does anything.
Nothing at all?
No, I think because it's going to be a one-off.
What if it's not?
I don't think it is.
No, you don't.
Because they're talking about him being in Marvel movies and all this other stuff. He's not going to have time. It's not a you can only be in one.
Right.
It's the matter of having time to do it.
Right.
Also, as much as I like Henry Cavill, he doesn't move the needle on anything. Anything.
I wish I could argue, but Man from U.N.C.L.E., Gentlemanly Warfare, like, you're not wrong.
No.
Mission Impossible. Well, can you claim that that's him? Because the one that just came out did just as well. If not better.
I think that he's part of he came into a franchise.
Yeah.
I don't think. You know, I think people are more interested in the mustache.
Definitely.
Because of all the garbage that happened with Justice League. But, and I like Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
I think I love that he's a big nerd.
Yes.
And he doesn't seem to take himself very seriously. He's got another movie coming out the end of the year, and I can't remember.
Is it Argyle 2? No.
Like, yeah, there's another one. I mean, the guy. I don't know if the guy picks the wrong roles, but like Man of Steel, I loved him in Man of Steel. I love Man of Steel. Period.
Is he the next Ryan Reynolds? And I say that by way of before Deadpool, how many hits did Ryan Reynolds actually have? You know, like starring roles limited, right?
Well, he did rom-coms and all that kind of stuff, so he was successful,
right? But with the rom-coms, like, what would you qualify? Like, The Proposal, was he more of the pool than Sandra Bullock?
Oh no,
right?
No.
So like,
but he was. But he's part of that.
Sure.
But yeah, and you're no. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't until Deadpool that he became Ryan Reynolds.
Exactly. So I wonder if, like, in a weird sort of way, through geekdom, they are beloved, but just not actually successful actors in that moving the needle way. Like, there's a thing that they do very well, or an audience that they capture really well.
Yeah.
But it's not the general movie audience that I think actually matters. Because like I said, I think with Deadpool, and we'll really see it with this next movie, will it do astronomically better than the other previous Deadpool movies because it's Deadpool 3 or because Hugh Jackman's in it?
Yeah, Hugh Jackman, without a doubt. Hugh Jackman to me is worth getting it at that $1 billion mark, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And that's not only because of how he can play the character, is that he's coming back to play the character.
Yeah.
Which also leads me right into why they should stop talking about casting a new Wolverine. You can't do this. Let's get back to Superman.
Okay. We'll say that for another episode. But no, like, I'm definitely super excited for what I think this movie is going to do. I think Gunn, as a writer-director, he has very interesting takes on things, which is always fun. And I think even if it's not exact, if it's not by the book, it's still interesting. And that is going to be the most important part for this new DCU that he's establishing, is that we're engaged. As long as we're following along, that's what absolutely matters. I know that we have Creature Commandos coming out. It's an animated feature later on this year. I do know that Sean Gunn returns as Weasel in that. So somehow, some way, shape, or form, Weasel's back. Which I was kind of concerned, like, how much of the DCEU is absolutely getting washed out, and it looks like things are cherry picked as to what stays and what doesn't. And I don't know if they're using the Flash as a explanation for it, but I'm very curious as to how exactly it's going to work. I don't
think you need to explain it at all. Just do it.
Just do it.
It's
fair.
So the latest rumor has Jason Momoa in Supergirl
as Lobo.
Ooh,
I'm for it. I am for that. Okay, so Jason Momoa as Aquaman was an inspired choice. It was, like, not anything of what anybody would have guessed.
Yeah.
And they made it work. Like, I don't even want to just say he made it work. Zach made it work. Like,
it worked. No, it absolutely worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
But him as Lobo, that is borderline to me, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, where you go, well, duh, like, look at it.
Except I actually cared about Iron Man.
You don't care about the main man?
Aww. When was the first time I saw Lobo?
After you liked comics? No. When
Omega
was it?
Man.
Was it really?
Yeah. His first appearance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And everyone's like, oh, this guy's this. And I'm like, okay. That's okay.
I mean, that's fair. My first time with him is well after, definitely. I don't think I've ever actually read a Lobo series.
Oh, I definitely have not.
Yeah, I haven't done that.
I've seen him in, like, animated stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm not. The character doesn't do anything for me.
I'm interested in him as a character because I'm just curious, but I've never actually seen a Lobo comic before. Like, the closest I've seen is, like, the Wisdom of Lobo book, which is, it's a big, thick graphic novel that's absolutely empty. And there's nothing in it because that's the Wisdom of Lobo. Like, which I think is hilarious. Like, that's...
Is it cover art?
Yes.
Is it Simon Bisley?
Of course.
That's the most I know about Lobo at this point.
Same. Big shout out to Simon. That's my guy. But, like, yeah, like, I love them rethinking his place, because they could have just as easily put him in Superman, and I hope they don't do that. Save him for Supergirl.
I think there's going to be too much in Superman.
Already?
Yeah.
Because there is a ton.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, though. Fingers crossed. I believe in James, in his ability to manage it, because if just using Guardians as an example, Guardians coming into the MCU, you have an ensemble cast, which the MCU really didn't do in that way. Like every movie had an ensemble for sure, but like this was like a team out the gate, and these are mostly unknown people being established unto themselves as characters, and then as a team, all done in one. And he did that really, really well.
Yeah.
Especially considering that what the only major connection to anything else was the reference to Thanos, and even that had just been trickled out at that point. Because what did we have? We had Avengers, the appearance there, and then a reference at the end of Thor: The Dark World, I think is all we had.
I'm sorry. Asking me to remember something that I tend to forget as much as I possibly can.
Fair. But yeah, so like I believe in his ability to manage that much stuff, because like Guardians does have a ton in it. So fingers crossed. If he lets me down, I'll fight him. Like that's just, it's only fair. But I believe in him.
James Gunn, you're gonna fight James Gunn?
Yeah.
I think his wife will kick your ass.
That's why I'm not fighting her. I'm fighting him. Like,
no. She'll be there.
No.
You'll throw the first punch, and it'll be intercepted.
She'll just catch it like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. I was mad at the movie." But no. We're gonna have a good time when this movie comes out, because I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about. We're gonna do everything we can to kind of give it the honest treatment and say what we really think, because that's how we do it here in the Chatterverse. And I'm excited for it. I think next July is going to be a very interesting time for the superhero pop movie genre.
Yeah,
for sure. So, guys, thank y'all for tuning in. That was a great episode, great combo. Thank you for tuning into the Chatterverse. I'm Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I really have nothing to say at this point.
We'll see you guys next time.